I never thought money could make someone forget who they used to be, but that night changed everything, and it started with one sentence that still rings in my head: "You don't deserve it. Let me take you back." Because this didn't begin with betrayal. It began with trust, real trust, the kind you don't give easily. My name is Maya, and this is my story told by me, not because I want pity, but because what happened after still feels unreal. I was the kind of woman who believed loyalty mattered more than money. I believed if you helped someone when they were down, they'd remember it when they stood back up. Yeah, I know that sounds naive now, but back then that was just who I was. I met Ethan when my life was finally stable. I had worked 2 jobs for years, saved every dollar, skipped vacations, skipped parties, skipped sleep just to build something solid. I wasn't rich, but I was careful and smart, and for the first time I felt safe. Ethan wasn't like me. He was loud, charming, always joking, always talking about big plans, but never really finishing any of them. Still, he had this way of making you feel like you were part of something bigger, like tomorrow was always going to be better with him in it. We weren't lovers. Not at first. We were friends. Real friends. Or at least that's what I thought. Late night talks, shared dreams, inside jokes. The kind of bond that makes you let your guard down without even noticing. Then life hit him hard. He lost his job. Got into debt, bad debt, people calling him non-stop, letters piling up, his smile fading day by day. I watched him fall apart right in front of me one night. He sat across from me, hands shaking, eyes red, and said, "Maya, I don't know what to do anymore." I remember that moment clearly because something inside me cracked. I couldn't just watch him drown. I had the money saved. Not all of it, but enough to help him reset, enough to save him. It was $100,000. Yeah, that number still feels heavy when I say it out loud. That money was supposed to be my future, my safety net, my peace. But I looked at him and thought, what's money if you can't help someone you care about? We didn't sign papers, we didn't bring lawyers into it. I trusted him, and he promised me every word, every look, every breath that he'd give it back once he got back on his feet. I remember laughing and saying, "I'm not worried, I know you." God, that sentence hurts now. At first things seemed fine. He paid off. His debts, started a new business. Suddenly he was confident again, posting online, smiling like nothing ever happened. Months passed. Then a year. Every time I gently asked about the money, he'd brush it off. Say things like "soon" or "don't stress" or "you know, I got you." Then one day I finally asked straight up, "When are you giving it back?" He looked at me differently that day, colder, like I was a stranger, like I was asking for something I wasn't owed. He leaned back, crossed his arms, and said, "Why are you acting like I stole from you?" I felt my chest tighten. I said, "Because it was a loan, Ethan, you promised." He laughed, not a nervous laugh, not a joke, just a sharp laugh, and said, "I never signed anything." That was the moment I realized the man sitting in front of me wasn't the one I helped. I tried to stay calm, tried to remind him of the nights I stayed up with him, of the tears, of the promises, but he just shook his head and said, "You gave it to me, you weren't forced." Then came the words that broke me. "I'm not giving it back. No apology, no shame, no hesitation." I walked out that night, numb, my ears ringing, my hands shaking, wondering how someone could erase years of trust with one sentence. For weeks I spiraled. I blamed myself, called myself stupid, replayed every sign, I ignored every red flag, I painted green because I wanted to believe, but sadness didn't last forever. Anger took its place. I started noticing things. Ethan never changed. His number never blocked me. He just acted like he won. He was living better than ever. Expensive dinners, trips, flashy posts, and every picture felt like a slap. That's when I stopped crying and started thinking I didn't want revenge. Like movies show, no yelling, no chaos. I wanted justice. I wanted him to face the truth. He thought money could silence me. He thought I'd just disappear. He was wrong. I started digging quietly, learning things, listening, watching, connecting dots. I realized Ethan's new business wasn't as clean as it looked. There were lies layered on lies, shortcuts covered with confidence, and I understood something powerful. He didn't fear me because he thought I had no leverage. He forgot one thing: I knew everything, every lie he told, every step he took to climb back up. I was there at the bottom with him, and I remembered it all. That's when I made a promise to myself, not out loud, not in anger, but calm and clear: if he wouldn't return what wasn't his, then karma would come through me. And trust me, when I say this, the next part of my story is where everything changes, because the same woman he thought he could walk over was about to remind him who gave him his first chance, and why you should never betray someone who knows your whole truth. I didn't wake up angry that morning. I woke up clear, and that scared me more than rage ever could, because when anger fades, you either forgive or you focus. And I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. The first thing I did was stop reaching out. I didn't text Ethan, I didn't call, I didn't post sad quotes or ask mutual friends to check on him. I went quiet, the kind of quiet that makes people underestimate you. Silence is dangerous when someone thinks they already won. I replayed everything in my head, not with emotion this time, but like a puzzle. Every conversation, every excuse, every time he dodged my questions. There were patterns now that I wasn't blinded by loyalty. I realized something important. Ethan didn't just refuse to pay me back. He rewrote the story in his head to make himself the victim. He convinced himself I gave him the money because I wanted to, because I was stupid, because I wouldn't fight back. And maybe for a while he was right. I took time off work, told everyone I needed space, but really I needed to rebuild my mind. Because betrayal messes with you, it makes you question your instincts, your worth, your memories. Some nights I'd sit on my couch staring at the wall, thinking about how easy it was for him to sleep, while I counted the cost of being kind. But then something shifted. I remembered who I was before him. I wasn't weak. I wasn't careless. I was strategic. I built my life from nothing, and I did it by paying attention, by planning, by waiting for the right moment. And that's when I stopped seeing myself as someone who lost money and started seeing myself as someone who gained information. Information is power, and Ethan handed me a lot of it without even knowing. I started with the basics: public records, business registrations, social media posts, things most people scroll past without thinking twice. I looked deeper: dates didn't match. Timelines overlapped. Stories changed. The more I looked, the clearer it became. His success was built on shortcuts. Not illegal stuff, not yet, but definitely. Shaky ground, the kind that collapses when pressure hits. I remembered a conversation from months back, him bragging about how he convinced an investor to trust him without paperwork, laughing about how confidence sells better than contracts. That laugh came back to me, and this time it didn't hurt. It fueled me. I wasn't trying to destroy his life, I just wanted balance. He took my security, so I was going to take his comfort slowly, carefully. I reached out to people we both knew, but not like you'd expect. I didn't accuse, I didn't cry. I asked questions, I listened. I let people talk, and they always do when they think you're harmless. Turns out Ethan had a habit of borrowing not just money, but credibility. He dropped names, used connections, exaggerated relationships. People trusted him because he sounded sure of himself. Sound familiar? Each piece of the puzzle added weight to my plan. At night, I wrote everything down, not emotionally, just facts. Dates, words, screenshots, backups of backups, because I learned something real quick. Truth only matters if you can prove it. There were moments doubt crept in, like, maybe I should just walk away. Maybe money isn't worth this stress. Maybe letting go is the real win. But then I'd remember his face when he said, "I'm not giving it back," like it was a joke. Like my effort, my sacrifice was disposable. And that thought snapped me back into focus every time. Weeks passed, then months. And during that time, Ethan tried reaching out, not to apologize, not to return the money, but to test me. Random texts like, "Hope you're good," or "Saw this place, thought of you." I ignored them. All that silence bothered him more than yelling ever could, because silence leaves room for imagination. And guilt creeps in where noise can't reach. One night, he finally sent a longer message saying, "I don't know why you're acting distant, we should talk like adults." I stared at that screen and laughed out loud because adults don't steal and pretend it's a misunderstanding. I didn't reply. Instead, I took another step forward. I started talking to someone Ethan didn't know. I knew a woman he once worked with, someone who left quietly and never spoke bad about him, publicly. I reached out casually, said, "Hey, it's been a while, how are you?" She responded, warm at first, then cautious, then honest. Turns out she had her own story. Money, unpaid promises, broken contracts ignored. Hearing her story didn't. It made me happy, it made me calm, because now I knew this wasn't personal. This was his pattern, and patterns are predictable. She didn't want revenge, she just wanted closure. And that told me something. Ethan survived because people walked away instead of standing their ground. I wasn't walking away. I told her my story, not everything, just enough. And there was a long pause before she replied. Then she said, "I wondered when this would catch up to him." That sentence felt like validation, like confirmation that I wasn't crazy or dramatic or bitter. I wasn't alone that night. I slept better than I had in months because I finally understood the game Ethan was playing, and more importantly, how to beat it. He thrived in chaos, confusion, rushed decisions, emotional reactions. So I did the opposite. I slowed everything down. I planned like I was building a business. Not a revenge plot, because emotions fade, but structure lasts. I asked myself one question over and over: what does Ethan care about more than money? The answer came fast. His image. He didn't want to look like the bad guy. He didn't want people questioning his success. He didn't want investors doubting him. He needed to be seen as trustworthy. That was his weakness, and I didn't need to expose him publicly or embarrass him online. That would be too obvious, too messy. I needed him to feel the ground shift under his feet quietly, the way mine did when he said no. I needed him to realize that keeping my money came with a cost higher than $100,000. So I made my move, not directly, not loudly, but precisely. I started stepping into rooms he thought he owned. Conversations he thought were safe, circles he thought were loyal. I didn't accuse, I didn't warn, I just asked questions and let people think, and once people start thinking, they don't stop. I knew it would take time, and I was okay with that, because this wasn't about speed, it was about certainty. Ethan thought karma was a myth, something people say to feel better. He was about to learn karma doesn't rush, but it never forgets. And the woman he underestimated, the one he thought would stay quiet, was already 3 steps ahead, watching the dominoes line up one by one. He just didn't hear them falling yet. By the time Ethan noticed something was off, it was already too late. And that's the funny thing about slow plans. They don't announce themselves, they just exist quietly until the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. I remember the exact moment. I realized he was starting to feel it. He posted one of those fake motivational quotes online, something about loyalty and hard work and building from nothing. And I almost felt secondhand embarrassment, because I knew the truth, and so did a few others. Now people had started asking questions, not to his face, not yet, but behind the scenes. Messages slowed, meetings got rescheduled, calls went unanswered. And for a guy who thrived on attention, silence was torture. Meanwhile, I kept living my life, or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. I went back to work, started going to the gym again, met friends for drinks, laughed a little louder, posted less, because real peace doesn't need proof inside. Though I was calculating every step, I didn't want him panicking too soon. Panic makes people reckless, and I needed him comfortable enough to keep revealing himself. So I played my role, perfectly calm, friendly, distant, but polite. When we finally ran into each other at a mutual friend's gathering, he smiled too hard, hugged me like nothing happened, said, "Hey stranger, long time." I smiled back and said, "Yeah, life's been busy," and watched his eyes search my face for clues. Nothing scares a liar more than not knowing what you know. We made small talk, weather, work, random nonsense, and I could feel him waiting for the moment I'd bring up the money like it was an itch. He couldn't scratch, but I didn't. I talked about a book I was reading, a trip I was planning, and his shoulders relaxed just a bit, because in his mind, silence meant surrender. He was wrong again. That night he messaged me later, said, "It was good seeing you. Maybe we should catch up properly," I replied. Hours later, kept it light, "Sure." Maybe sometime that maybe haunted him more than a no ever could. Behind the scenes, things were moving faster than he realized. One investor quietly backed out. Another asked for more documentation. Someone brought up concerns about transparency. None of it traced back to me directly. And that was the beauty of it. I wasn't attacking him. I was letting truth do the work. I had learned something powerful during those months. People don't need accusations. They need patterns, and once they see one crack, they start looking for others. Ethan started calling more often, leaving voicemails pretending to check in, but his voice had changed. The confidence was still there, but it sounded thinner, like he was forcing it. One voicemail stuck with me. He said, "Hey, just wanted to say no hard feelings about everything. We're cool, right? We're cool," as if one sentence could erase betrayal. I deleted it without replying. Then came the night he finally asked directly. We met for coffee, neutral place, public safe. He looked tired, darker circles under his eyes, his energy restless. He leaned forward and said, "So what's going on with you lately? You've been distant." I took a sip and said, "I've just been focusing on myself." He nodded, then said, "I've been under a lot of stress with the business people asking questions, rumors flying around." I raised an eyebrow and said, "Really, what kind of questions?" He hesitated just a second too long, then laughed it off. "Nothing serious, just normal stuff." I looked him in the eye and said, "That's what happens when trust gets shaky." The words hung there heavy. He shifted in his seat, asked, "What do you mean?" I shrugged. Said, "In general, when people feel betrayed, they start looking closer." His face changed, not dramatically, just enough for me to know the message landed. He tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but the damage was done as we stood to leave. He finally said about the money, "Maybe we should revisit that conversation." There it was. I turned to him, calm, steady, and said, "I'm open to resolving things when you're ready to be honest." Then I walked away, no yelling, no demands, no threats, just truth. That night he sent a long message, paragraphs, this time explaining himself, blaming circumstances, misunderstanding, stress, saying he never meant to hurt me. I read it once, then archived it because explanations without action are just noise. Days later I heard from someone else that Ethan was scrambling, trying to secure funding, trying to prove stability, trying to hold together an image that was cracking at the edges, and I felt something unexpected, relief, not joy, not satisfaction. Just relief, because the power had shifted and he knew it. He reached out again, this time offering to talk numbers, repayment plans, timelines. I didn't respond right away because I wanted him sitting in that discomfort, the same way I had for months. When I finally replied, it was simple. "We can talk when we're ready to return what isn't yours. No drama, no negotiation." That's when he realized this wasn't a game anymore. He couldn't charm his way out. He couldn't laugh it off. He couldn't rewrite the story because too many people were watching now. Too many questions floating around, and the woman he thought he could dismiss had become the one variable he couldn't control. I wasn't chasing him anymore. He was chasing peace, and peace has a price. The next time he called, his voice was different, quieter, less certain, and for the first time since all this began, I heard something real, fear, not of me, but of the truth catching up completely. And as I listened, I knew we were getting close to the moment everything would either fall apart or finally be made right. Either way, I was ready because I had already survived the worst part, losing trust. Everything after that was just balance being restored, and trust me when I say the next step forced Ethan to face a choice he never thought he'd have to make, one that would decide how this story truly ends. Fear changes people, and when I heard it in Ethan's voice, I knew the game had shifted, but I didn't rush it. I let the silence stretch because fear needs space to grow. He called again the next day, then the day after that, shorter messages. Now no jokes, no confidence, just check-ins. That felt like fishing lines thrown into dark water. I didn't answer, not because I was being cruel, but because for the first time he was feeling what I felt when he said no. That slow, heavy uncertainty, the wondering, the waiting, the replaying of every mistake. I stayed busy, or at least pretended to. I went to work, cooked, real meals. cleaned my apartment, reorganized my life because chaos outside feeds chaos inside. And I wasn't letting him take anything else from me at night, though. When the world went quiet, the memories came back, the trust, the laughter, the way I defended him to people who warned me. And those moments still stung, but they didn't control me anymore. I reminded myself of one truth, over and over. I didn't do anything wrong. Kindness isn't a flaw. Betrayal is a week passed before I finally picked up one of his calls. I answered calmly like nothing was wrong. "Hey Maya," he said, relief flooding his voice. "Thank God, I thought you blocked me." I said, "No, I've just been busy." He laughed weakly and said, "Yeah, me too. Things are crazy right now." I let him talk about stress, about pressure, about misunderstandings, and I listened quietly because when someone's drowning, they'll say anything to feel lighter. Then he paused and said, "Look, about the money, I know things got weird, but maybe we can figure something out." I asked one question only. "What do you mean by weird?" He went silent, then said, "I guess I didn't handle it right." I waited. He added, "I should have communicated better." I waited again. Finally, he said, "I don't want bad energy between us." That's when I spoke and my voice didn't shake. Energy isn't bad when truth is clear. I said, "What's bad is pretending nothing happened." He sighed, said, "Okay, fine. What do you want?" That question told me everything, because if he really understood, he wouldn't have asked. I said, "I want what was mine returned, and I want you to understand why this matters." He pushed back. Of course he did. Said the business wasn't liquid. Yet said investors were nervous, said timing was off. I didn't argue, I just said that sounds like a you problem. Silence. Then anger crept in. He accused me of talking behind his back, of ruining his reputation, of making things harder. I let him talk because guilt always tries to flip the script. When he finished, I said calmly, "I didn't make promises you couldn't keep, you did." He hung up that night. I got messages from 2 different people asking if everything was okay between me and Ethan. Casual questions, but I could feel the concern under them. The ripple was spreading. Days later, he asked to meet again, this time. Not casual, not coffee, but serious. His words, not mine. We met in his office, the same place he once bragged about building from scratch. And I remember standing there, noticing how empty it felt, like confidence drained out of the walls. He looked at me and said, "You're putting me in an impossible position." I looked back and said, "No, you put yourself there when you decided my trust was disposable." He rubbed his face, said, "If I pay you back, it'll hurt the business." I didn't miss a beat and said, "It already hurt mine." That landed for the first time. He really looked at me not as someone he could talk over or charm, but as someone he underestimated. He asked quietly, "How did things get this far?" I said, "Because you thought silence meant weakness." He tried to negotiate partial payments, delays, conditions, and I stopped him mid-sentence. "I'm not bargaining." I said, "I'm closing a chapter." He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. And maybe he was, because the woman standing there wasn't the one who handed him a lifeline without question. She was someone who learned the cost of blind trust. He asked for time. I said, "Time was something you took already." I left him with one choice: return what isn't yours or let the truth keep spreading. I didn't threaten. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Truth doesn't need volume that night. I went home and cried, not from sadness but from release, because no matter what happened next, I had stood up for myself fully, and that was something he could never take back. A few days later, he sent a message, just one line, "I'll make it right." I didn't respond, because words didn't matter anymore. Only action did behind the scenes. I heard things falling apart: deals, delayed partnerships, questioned people stepping back slowly, quietly, and I didn't feel guilty. I felt grounded, because accountability feels like attack only to those who avoid it. A week later, I got an email with a payment plan, detailed, official, signed. I stared at the screen for a long time, not smiling, not celebrating, just breathing. The money wasn't all there yet, but it was coming, and more importantly, the power had fully returned to where it belonged. He called after sending it, asked if we were okay. Now I said we'll see, because forgiveness isn't automatic and trust doesn't reset. just because consequences arrive. What he didn't know was this wasn't at the end, it was the turning point, because getting the money back was only part of the story. The bigger lesson, the one that would change both of us, was still coming. And as I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, I realized something deep and unsettling. Revenge isn't about hurting someone. It's about refusing to let them define how your story ends. And I wasn't done telling mine yet. The first payment didn't hit my account right away. And that waiting tested me more than I expected, because hope is dangerous when it's been broken before. Every morning I checked my phone, not obsessively, just once, like a quiet habit, and every morning there was nothing, and I reminded myself I wasn't desperate anymore. I was prepared. Ethan kept his distance now. No random messages, no casual check-ins, just short updates about timelines, approvals, delays, all the things he used to laugh at when I was the one asking funny how roles switch when consequences show up. I told myself not to celebrate early because this wasn't about winning, it was about closure, and closure only counts when it's real. During that time, I started reflecting on everything that led here, not just what he did, but why I allowed it. I wasn't blaming myself. I was learning there's a difference. I realized I tied my worth to being dependable, to being the one people leaned on, and somewhere along the way I forgot that support doesn't mean sacrifice without limits. That awareness hurt, but it also healed something. Deep friends started noticing the change in me. They said I looked lighter, stronger, like I finally took up space in my own life. And that felt better than any payment ever could. Then one afternoon while I was at work, my phone buzzed, deposit received. I stared at the screen for a long moment, afraid to touch it like it might disappear. It wasn't the full amount, but it was real. Money returned to me after months of being told no. And that moment was quiet, powerful, no music, no cheering, just a deep breath. I didn't know I'd been holding Ethan. Texted, right after saying, first transfer done, more coming. Just like we agreed. I replied, thanks, keep me posted. That was it. No smiley face, no relief, no praise. Because doing the right thing late doesn't earn applause. Over the next few weeks, more payments came in, sometimes on time, sometimes a day late, and every delay reminded him that trust once broken doesn't come back with apologies. It comes back with consistency. We spoke only when necessary, and even then it was brief, professional, distant. He once asked if we could grab coffee, talk things through. I said there's nothing left to talk through. Actions are enough. I could tell that hurt his ego more than anger ever would during that time. I learned something unexpected. People started coming to me asking for advice about boundaries, about business, about trust. They didn't know the full story, but they sensed I'd been through something real. I didn't spill details. I didn't drag his name through dirt. I just told them one thing. If someone benefits from your silence, they don't deserve it. That became my quiet rule. One night, Ethan called unexpectedly, his voice tired, not panicked, just worn. He said, I didn't think you'd actually do it. I asked, do what? Hold me accountable. I didn't respond right away, and he continued, I thought you'd move on. I thought you were too nice. I said, being nice doesn't mean being weak. That was the longest pause yet. He said, I lost a lot this year. I said, so did I, and for the first time he didn't argue after we hung up. I sat there thinking about how strange life is. How someone can be central to your world one day, and a lesson the next. More money came in slowly, steadily, and with each payment the emotional weight lifted a little more. But something else happened too. I stopped checking his social media, stopped caring who believed him, stopped replaying the past. I started planning again for myself, trips, goals, ideas I'd put on hold because I was busy carrying someone else's mess. That freedom felt earned when the final payment hit my account. I didn't cry, I didn't laugh, I closed my eyes and whispered, it's done. Ethan sent one last message saying, I hope one day you can forgive me. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on the truth. I forgive myself first. I never sent it because some conversations don't need to be finished. They just need to end. Weeks later, I heard his business never fully recovered, not destroyed, not exposed publicly, just quieter, smaller, more cautious. And that felt right, not because he suffered, but because balance returned. I didn't ruin him. I reminded him that choices have weight looking back. Now I see how close I came to letting betrayal turn me bitter, but instead it sharpened me. I learned that standing up for yourself doesn't make you cruel, it makes you honest. I learned that karma isn't magic, it's motion set in place by truth, patience, and courage. And most of all, I learned that the moment you stop begging for fairness and start demanding respect, everything changes. This story didn't end with revenge. It ended with me reclaiming my voice, my boundaries, and my future. And if there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's this: never underestimate the quiet person who finally decides they've had enough, because when they move, they don't miss. After everything settled, I thought I'd feel complete, like the story wrapped itself up neatly and life moved on. But real life doesn't work like that. There's always an aftershock. The money was back, yes. But something inside me was still adjusting, like my mind hadn't caught up with the reality that the fight was over for months. I had lived in alert mode, watching, listening, preparing. And when that stopped, the silence felt strange, almost uncomfortable. I remember waking up one morning with nothing urgent to think about, and instead of relief, I felt lost, because for so long, survival had been my purpose. That's when I realized betrayal doesn't just steal money or trust, it steals peace, and peace takes time to rebuild. I started noticing little things: the way loud voices made me tense, how I second-guessed kindness, how I questioned people's motives, even when they hadn't given me a reason. I hated that I refused to let Ethan's choices turn me into someone guarded and cold. So I made another decision, one just as important as the first. I chose to heal intentionally, not with fake positivity or pretending nothing happened, but by facing it honestly. I talked about it with a therapist for the first time in my life, and saying the story out loud without editing, without defending myself, without minimizing. It felt like releasing something heavy I'd been carrying alone. She asked me why I trusted him so easily. I said because I saw myself in him. That answer surprised me. I saw someone trying to build something from nothing, someone scared of failing, someone who wanted to be seen and understood. The difference was, I did the work and he took shortcuts. That realization helped me forgive myself. Around that time, Ethan crossed my mind less and less. He became a memory instead of a presence. And that's how you know someone's lost power over you. But life has a way of testing lessons just to see if they stick a few months later. I met someone new, not romantically at first, just a connection, someone who reminded me of the old version of me, hopeful, driven, full of ideas. One night they opened up about a struggle, asked for advice, asked for help, and I felt that familiar pull, that urge to fix, to save, to step in. I paused, and in that pause, everything changed. I didn't say no, I didn't shut them down, but I didn't overextend either. I offered guidance, not sacrifice, support, not rescue, and I walked away feeling proud instead of drained. That was growth. I realized the real revenge wasn't getting my money back. It was breaking the pattern that led to the betrayal in the first place. Ethan didn't just teach me who he was. He taught me who I needed to become: stronger, clearer, slower to trust, but faster to walk away when respect disappears. Sometimes people ask me if I regret lending him the money, and the truth is complicated. I regret the outcome, not the intention, because being kind is never wrong. Giving blindly is. There's a difference. And learning. It changed how I move through the world. One evening I ran into Ethan, unexpectedly, months after everything ended. He looked different, not broken, just humbled, like life had quieted him. He smiled politely, said, "Hey Maya." I smiled back, said, "Hey, that was it. No tension, no history, no weight. Just two people who once shared a chapter that was now closed." As I walked away, I felt something I hadn't expected: gratitude. Not for the pain, but for the clarity it forced on me, because before all this I thought strength was about endurance, about holding on no matter what. Now I know strength is knowing when to let go and when to stand firm. If you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, especially by someone you trusted deeply, hear me when I say this. You're not weak for believing the best in people, you're human. But don't let that humanity become a weapon someone uses against you. Set boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. Speak up, even when your voice shakes. Walk away, even when you still care, because peace isn't found in revenge. It's found in self-respect. And once you choose, that no one can take it from you again. This chapter ended quietly. No explosions, no public drama, just balance restored and lessons learned. But the impact stayed with me, shaping every decision, every relationship, every risk I take. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that growth for anything, because the woman who came out of this story isn't someone who would ever accept less than she deserves again. And that's the real ending they never see coming. Time passed in a way that felt real again. Not rushed, not heavy, just steady days turning into weeks. Weeks into months, and for the first time in a long while, my life wasn't reacting to something, it was moving forward on its own. I started saying yes to things. I used to put off small trips, last-minute plans, random dinners with friends. The kind of moments that remind you life isn't just about surviving, it's about living. But even in that calm, there were echoes, not of Ethan specifically, but of the version of me that let things slide too long. The version that explained other people's bad behavior before questioning why she had to endure it. I caught myself doing it once at work when a colleague took credit for something I did, and my first instinct was to brush it off, keep the peace, not make waves. I stopped myself. I spoke up calmly, no anger, no drama, just facts. And the room went quiet for a second before things corrected themselves afterward. My hands were shaking, but my chest felt light. That's when I realized the betrayal didn't just teach me about trust, it taught me about voice. I didn't need to be loud to be heard, I just needed to be clear. One night while scrolling through old photos, I found one of Ethan and me from years ago. We were sitting on the floor eating takeout, laughing about something stupid. I stared at it longer than I expected, waiting for anger or sadness to show up. It didn't. What I felt instead was distance, like looking at a stranger from another lifetime. I deleted the photo not out of spite, but because I didn't need it anymore. Letting go isn't dramatic, it's quiet. People think closure comes from conversations, apologies, explanations. But most of the time it comes from acceptance. Accepting that some people won't give you what you deserve, not because you're lacking, but because they are. I stopped replaying conversations, stopped imagining what I'd say if we talked again. Stopped needing him to understand. Understanding is a gift, not a requirement. Around that time, I started writing again, something I hadn't done in years. Journaling. Mostly thoughts, lessons, moments of clarity. I didn't share it with anyone, it was just for me. But through those pages, I saw my transformation written line by line. I went from why did this happen to me, to what did this teach me? That shift changed everything. One entry stood out. I wrote, "I will never confuse access with loyalty again." That sentence felt like armor. I noticed people responded differently to me too, not because I changed my personality, but because I changed my standards. When you stop over-explaining, people listen. When you stop over-giving, people respect your limits. Ethan faded further into the background. Not as a villain, not as a regret, just as a reminder. And reminders don't control you, they guide you. I don't hate him. I don't wish him harm. I don't check up on his life. I simply don't carry him anymore. That freedom is priceless. If there's one thing I wish someone told me earlier, it's this. You don't owe anyone access to you just because you shared history. History doesn't equal permission, and betrayal doesn't require revenge to be resolved. It requires self-respect to be healed. This chapter of my life didn't end with applause or validation from others. It ended with quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that stays. And as I moved forward, I knew this story wasn't just about money or betrayal. It was about becoming someone who would never abandon herself again. And once you reach that point, no one can ever take anything from you again. I used to think healing was this straight, clean line, like one day you wake up and everything just clicks and you're done. But that's not how it went for me at all. Healing for me was messy, sneaky. It showed up when I wasn't looking and disappeared when I needed it most. This phase of my life felt like standing in an open field after a storm. The sky looked clear, but the ground was still soaked, and every step reminded me of what just passed on the outside. People thought I was fine, actually better than fine. They'd say, "You're glowing, you seem so strong. You handled that so well." And I'd smile, nod, play the role because explaining the inside felt exhausting. What they didn't see were the nights when random thoughts would sneak in, like what if I had pushed harder earlier? What if I had walked away sooner? What if I hadn't trusted him at all? Not regret exactly, just mental echoes of a chapter that rewired me some nights. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying moments, not the betrayal itself, but the warning signs. The tiny discomforts I ignored because I didn't want to seem dramatic. And that's when the anger would flare again, not at Ethan, but at myself. Why didn't I speak up sooner? Why did I doubt my instincts? Why did I think being patient meant being silent? Those questions haunted me for a while, but then something shifted again, and it happened during the most ordinary moment. I was at the grocery store standing in line when a man in front of me started yelling at the cashier over something stupid, a price mismatch, nothing serious. I watched her freeze, apologize over and over, trying to calm him down, and I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. And without thinking, I stepped forward and said, "Hey, it's not that serious, she's just doing her job." My voice was calm, not aggressive, just firm. The guy looked shocked, mumbled something and walked off. The cashier looked at me like I'd saved her life and said, "Thank you." I walked out with my groceries, heart pounding, and realized something huge. I didn't freeze anymore. The old me would have stayed quiet, avoided conflict, told herself it wasn't her place. But that version of me was gone. Betrayal didn't break me. It rewired my nervous system. It taught me that silence doesn't always keep you safe. Sometimes it slowly erases you. From that moment on, I started noticing how often I had minimized myself in the past, how often I'd choose comfort over clarity, and I promised myself I wouldn't do that again. This period of healing wasn't loud or dramatic, it was internal. It was me catching myself mid-pattern and choosing differently. I stopped over-explaining my decisions. I stopped apologizing for boundaries. I stopped answering messages that felt draining, and yeah, that made some people uncomfortable. Some friends pulled back, some connections faded, and at first that scared me because loss was still a sensitive spot. But then I realized something freeing. Anything that requires you to shrink to survive isn't meant to stay. I spent a lot of time alone during this phase. Not lonely, just selective. I went on long walks with my headphones on, blasting music that matched my mood. Sometimes angry, sometimes soft, sometimes hopeful. I started cooking again, not rushed meals, but slow, intentional ones. Chopping vegetables, like it was therapy. I took myself out to dinner, something I used to feel awkward doing, and realized how peaceful it was to sit with my own thoughts without distraction. That's when it hit me. I trusted myself again, not blindly, not naively, but deeply, and that trust felt stronger than anything I ever placed in another person. Ethan crossed my mind less, but when he did, it wasn't emotional. It was analytical, like studying a case you've already closed. I understood now that he didn't betray me because I was too kind. He betrayed me because he was too comfortable exploiting kindness. That distinction mattered. It took the shame out of the story. One night I found an old note on my phone from years ago, a list titled Goals and Dreams. And I laughed because most of them were paused or altered because of everything that happened. But instead of feeling sad, I felt excited because now I could rewrite them without fear. I started dreaming bigger but smarter. I set financial boundaries, legal boundaries, emotional boundaries. I learned to ask uncomfortable questions early, not to accuse but to clarify. I learned that real trust doesn't rush, it observes. People say betrayal hardens you, but that's not true. It sharpens you. It teaches you where to place your energy and where not to. During this time, I met new people. Not many, but a few who showed up consistently, who didn't overpromise, who respected no without making it personal. And that consistency felt healing in a way grand gestures never could. I realize something else. True closure doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from elevation, from outgrowing the version of yourself that accepted less. I didn't need Ethan to admit everything or apologize perfectly. I needed to become someone who would never allow that dynamic again. And I did. There were still moments of doubt. Of course, healing isn't linear. Some days I felt unstoppable, others I felt fragile for no clear reason. But the difference now was, I didn't judge myself for it. I let myself feel without spiraling. I let emotions pass instead of wrestling them. That's maturity, not toughness. One evening I sat on my balcony watching the city lights, thinking about how close I came to staying silent forever. How easy it would have been to walk away and swallow the loss. And I felt proud, not because I fought back, but because I chose myself. That choice echoed into every area of my life. Work, relationships, friendships, even how I talked to myself. I stopped calling myself stupid for trusting. I started calling myself brave for believing. Because believing in people is brave, walking away when they show you who they are is even braver. This section of my life wasn't about revenge or justice, or even money anymore. It was about integration, taking the pain, the lessons, the clarity, and letting them shape me without defining me. I wasn't the girl who got betrayed anymore. I was the woman who learned discernment. And that difference changed everything. If you're listening to this, and you're in that quiet after phase, the part no one talks about where things look okay, but you still feel shaky, I need you to know something. You're not behind, you're not weak, you're recalibrating your nervous system, your heart, your trust. They're learning a new language. Give yourself time, give yourself grace, because one day you'll wake up and realize the weight is gone, not because you forced it away, but because you grew stronger than it. And when that happens, you won't feel angry or vengeful. You'll feel steady, unshakable, free. And that freedom, that's when you know you truly won. By the time I reached this part of my journey, I didn't feel like I was recovering anymore. I felt like I was arriving into a version of myself that had always been there, but never fully allowed to lead. Something subtle changed in how I walked into rooms, how I spoke, how I listened, not guarded, not closed, just grounded. I stopped trying to read people's minds and started watching their actions instead. And that alone saved me so much energy. I didn't rush connections anymore. I let people reveal themselves over time. And what surprised me was how much peace that brought. There was no adrenaline, no overthinking, no trying to prove my worth. I didn't need to be chosen anymore, because I had already chosen myself. That shift affected everything at work. Opportunities started coming my way, not because I chased them, but because I stopped undervaluing myself. I negotiated without guilt. I asked for clarity. I walked away from things that felt off, and every time I did, that little voice inside me grew stronger. See, we got this one afternoon. I ran into someone who knew Ethan, not well, but enough to bring him up casually. They said, "I heard you two had a falling out." I smiled and said, "We just outgrew each other," and that was the truth. No bitterness, no story, no need to explain. Outgrowing someone doesn't always mean they're bad. It means the version of you that tolerated them no longer exists. I noticed I wasn't drawn to chaos anymore. I didn't romanticize struggle or confuse intensity with depth. Calm started to feel exciting. Consistency felt attractive. Respect felt non-negotiable. I remember sitting with a friend one night talking about relationships, trust, money, boundaries, all the things I once avoided because they felt uncomfortable. And she said, "You sound so sure of yourself." I laughed and said, "I'm not sure about everything. I'm just done doubting myself." That's the difference. Doubt keeps you stuck. Self-trust moves you forward. I also realized how much emotional labor I used to carry for others. Fixing, smoothing, managing feelings that weren't mine to hold. I stopped doing that, not in a cold way, just in a healthy one. I let people sit with their own discomfort. I let silence do its job. And surprisingly, people respected me more, not because I demanded it, but because I modeled it. There was a moment that really sealed this phase for me. I got an unexpected message from Ethan, months after we last spoke. Nothing dramatic, just a simple, "Hey, hope you're well." I stared at it for a long time, feeling nothing, no anger, no anxiety, no urge to reply, just neutrality. That's when I knew he no longer had access to my nervous system. I didn't respond, not out of punishment, but because I didn't owe him space in my life anymore, and that felt powerful. I deleted the message and went back to my evening. Like it never happened. That's real closure. When something that once controlled you becomes irrelevant, I started thinking about how many people stay stuck because they're waiting for someone else to change, apologize, or understand, and I wished I could tell them what I know now. Your healing doesn't require their participation. Your growth doesn't need their permission. You don't need to win the argument. You just need to win yourself back. Looking back, I see how carefully this lesson unfolded. First the betrayal, then the anger, then the planning, then the justice, then the healing, and finally the peace. Each stage necessary, each one shaping the next. If I had skipped the pain, I wouldn't have learned boundaries. If I had skipped the anger, I wouldn't have found my voice. If I had skipped the justice, I wouldn't have regained trust in myself. And if I had skipped the healing, I would have carried the wound into every new chapter. Nothing was wasted. Even the worst moments served a purpose. That realization changed how I view hardship now. Not as punishment, but as redirection. Life wasn't breaking me, it was refining me. I don't romanticize betrayal, and I don't wish it on anyone, but I won't pretend it didn't give me something valuable: clarity. Clarity about who I am, what I deserve, and what I will never accept again. This part of the story isn't flashy. There's no confrontation, no twist, no dramatic reveal, just a woman standing firmly in her own life, no longer shrinking, no longer explaining, no longer waiting. And that might not sound like revenge, but trust me, for someone who thought he could erase me, this is the ending he never saw coming. This part of the story doesn't start with drama. It starts with calm. And that might sound boring, but calm after chaos feels unreal, like standing in a quiet room after a fire alarm finally shuts off. I remember waking up one morning and realizing I hadn't thought about Ethan in days, not hours, days. And that hit me harder than any argument ever did, because it meant he was no longer a chapter I was rereading. He had become a paragraph I already understood. My routines felt different now. I wasn't rushing anymore. I wasn't proving anything. I wasn't carrying invisible weight. I moved slower but stronger. I trusted my decisions without asking 5 people for validation. And that confidence didn't come from success or money or praise. It came from alignment for the first time in my life. My actions matched my values. I wasn't saying yes when I meant no. I wasn't staying quiet when something felt wrong. I wasn't sacrificing peace to keep others comfortable. That changed everything. I started attracting different energy, different conversations, different opportunities. People didn't cross my boundaries as easily because I stopped leaving the door open, and when they did, I addressed it early. Not with emotion, just clarity. That alone saved me from so much unnecessary pain. I also noticed something interesting: when you stop playing small, people either rise to meet you or fall away. Both outcomes are a win. I spent a lot of time reflecting on how betrayal reshapes identity. Before all this, I defined myself by what I gave, how dependable I was, how much I could endure. Now I defined myself by discernment. Not everyone gets access. Not every story deserves my empathy. Not every problem is mine to fix. And that didn't make me cold. It made me free. I reconnected with parts of myself I had abandoned: creativity, curiosity, joy without guilt. I laughed more genuinely. I rested without feeling lazy. I enjoyed success without downplaying it. That's growth people don't talk about. I remember having a conversation with someone new who asked about my past relationships, friendships, mistakes. I told them honestly, I've been betrayed and I've learned a lot from it. They asked, did it make you bitter? I smiled and said no, it made me precise. That answer surprised even me, because precision is knowing exactly where your line is and never letting anyone cross it twice. I didn't hate Ethan. I didn't need to. Indifference is quieter than hate, but far more powerful. Hate keeps you tied to someone, indifference sets you free. There were moments I thought about reaching out, saying something final, something profound, but then I realized I didn't need a final word. My life was the statement. Every peaceful morning, every confident decision, every boundary honored. That was my response. If you're listening to this and you're in the middle of your own Betrayal story, feeling confused, angry, restless. Hear this. You don't need to rush healing. You don't need to force forgiveness. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You need to listen to yourself, because the moment you do, everything changes. Betrayal feels like an ending, but it's actually a reset, a chance to choose yourself without apology. And once you do, you will never go back. This chapter of my story isn't loud or dramatic, but it's solid, and that's better. It's built on truth, boundaries, and self-respect, and no one can take that from me ever again. What started as loss turned into alignment. What felt like injustice became clarity. What broke my trust rebuilt my spine, and that's how I know I didn't just survive this story, I transformed through it. This stage of my life felt like standing on solid ground after years of walking on glass, and every step reminded me how careful I used to be and how confident I was becoming. I started noticing how different my reactions were to situations that once would have sent me spiraling. A delayed reply didn't make my chest tighten. A disagreement didn't feel like rejection. A misunderstanding didn't feel like abandonment. That was new before betrayal. I used to personalize everything. If someone pulled away, I assumed I did something wrong. If plans changed, I tried to fix it. If someone crossed a line, I questioned myself before questioning them. Now I paused, I observed, and that pause saved me. There was a moment that really showed me how far I'd come. I was in a meeting where someone tried to twist facts to make themselves look better at my expense. Old me would have swallowed it, waited until later, replayed it in my head for days. New me spoke up in the moment, calmly, clearly, without heat. "That's not accurate," I said, and explained the truth. No apology, no justification. The room shifted afterward. Someone pulled me aside and said, "I wish I could do that." I smiled and said, "It takes practice." What I didn't say was, it takes pain too. Pain teaches you what you're no longer willing to tolerate. I also became more selective about who I let close. Not closed off, just intentional. I stopped oversharing early, stopped bonding over trauma, stopped mistaking vulnerability for connection. Real connection doesn't rush. It builds. I learned to let people earn my trust through consistency, not words. And that changed the quality of my relationships completely. I wasn't surrounded by many people anymore, but the ones who stayed felt solid, present, real. No guessing games, no mixed signals, no emotional roller coasters, just mutual respect. There were times I reflected on Ethan not with emotion, but with curiosity, wondering how someone could lose so much simply by refusing accountability. And I realized something: some people would rather protect their ego than their integrity. And that's a choice. Just like it was my choice to walk away with my dignity intact. I didn't need to prove I was right anymore. Being at peace was enough. I started mentoring someone younger at work, and one day they asked me how I handle pressure. So calmly I thought about it and said, "I don't confuse urgency with importance anymore." That's what betrayal teaches you. It forces you to see what actually matters. Money matters, yes, but not more than self-respect. Connection matters, but not without trust. Ambition matters, but not at the cost of your values. Those priorities became my compass. I also noticed how my body responded differently to life. I slept better. My shoulders weren't constantly tense. My laughter came easier. Stress didn't disappear, but it didn't control me because I trusted myself to handle whatever came. That trust was hard-earned. I remember one quiet night sitting alone, realizing I was no longer waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't bracing for disappointment. I was present. That feeling was unfamiliar but beautiful. It meant I finally believed that even if something went wrong, I would be okay. And that belief is powerful. If there's one thing betrayal strips from you first, it's safety. But if you do the work, if you face it instead of burying it, you rebuild. Safety from the inside. And when safety comes from within, nothing external can shake it. This chapter wasn't about proving strength, it was about embodying it quietly, steadily, without needing recognition. I didn't need anyone to validate what I'd been through. I knew my truth, and that was enough. Looking back, I see that everything I lost made space for something better. Not louder, not flashier, just healthier. And that's the kind of win that lasts. because it's built on clarity, boundaries, and self-trust, things no one can ever take from you, not even betrayal. This part crept up on me quietly. I didn't notice it at first because nothing dramatic happened. There was no big moment, no announcement, no turning point you could circle on a calendar. It was just a feeling, a steady calm that stayed. I realized one day that I wasn't waiting anymore. Not waiting for an apology, not waiting for recognition, not waiting for the universe to explain itself. I was living fully present in my own life, without needing permission. That was new for a long time. Even after everything ended, there was this part of me that stayed alert, like I was still on guard, still scanning for danger, still expecting something to go wrong. But one morning I woke up and that tension just wasn't there. My body felt at ease, and that's when it hit me. I finally felt safe again. Not because life was perfect, but because I trusted myself to handle whatever came next. That trust changed how I moved through the world. I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head. I stopped imagining worst-case scenarios. I stopped assuming good things would fall apart. I started meeting life as it was instead of bracing for what it might do to me. There was a moment when a close friend canceled plans last minute. And instead of feeling rejected or annoyed, I simply said, okay, maybe another time, and meant it. No story, no spiral, no resentment. That's when I knew something inside me had healed. I wasn't attaching my worth to other people's choices anymore. I was rooted. I also noticed how much quieter my inner voice had become, the voice that used to question every decision, criticize every feeling, replay every mistake. It softened, it spoke with kindness. Now it said, you did your best. It said you handled that well. It said it's okay to rest. I had never talked to myself like that before. Betrayal forced me to become my own anchor. And once I learned how to do that, I didn't need anyone else to hold me steady. I thought about Ethan less often, and when I did, it wasn't with emotion, but with perspective. I saw him clearly now, not as a villain or a lesson, just as someone who made choices and lived with them. And I released the need to understand why. Why doesn't heal you, acceptance does. I realized I had spent so much of my life trying to be understood by others that I forgot how powerful it is to understand yourself. To know your limits, to know your patterns, to know your needs. That knowledge made my life simpler. I said no without guilt. I said yes without fear. I changed my mind without explaining. That freedom felt earned. There was also grief in this stage. Grief for the version of me that didn't know better. The version that gave too much and asked for too little, but it wasn't heavy grief. It was gentle, like saying goodbye to an old friend. I honored her, she got me here, but I didn't need to be her anymore. I started building things again, goals, plans, dreams that weren't shaped by fear. I trusted myself to choose wisely now. And even if I made mistakes, I knew they wouldn't break me because I wouldn't abandon myself again. That was the biggest shift before all this. I stayed in situations longer than I should have because I didn't trust myself to walk away. Now I knew I could, and that knowledge changed everything. I became less tolerant of disrespect but more patient with imperfection, less reactive but more decisive. That balance felt like maturity. One evening, I caught my reflection in the mirror and smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I recognized the person looking back at me. She was calm, she was grounded, she was whole. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud, not of what I endured, but of who I became. This chapter didn't close with fireworks. It closed with peace. The kind of peace you don't question, the kind you protect. And as I moved forward, I carried this truth with me. Nothing is worth losing yourself, not money, not love, not loyalty, not history. Because once you choose yourself, everything else either aligns or falls away, and either outcome is okay. That's when you know you've truly healed. There's a strange moment that happens after real healing, and nobody really talks about it because it's not dramatic. It's almost invisible. It's the moment when your past stops introducing itself before you do. I didn't realize it at first, but one day I was telling a story about my life to someone new, and I noticed something. I didn't mention the betrayal, not because I was hiding it, but because it no longer felt like the headline. It was just context, background noise. And that realization hit me hard in the best way for so long. That experience defined how I explained myself, why I was cautious, why I was careful, why I moved the way I did now. I didn't need it to explain anything, I was just me, present, whole, unapologetic. That's when I knew the wound had finally scarred over, not tender, not reactive, just healed. I stopped expecting life to test me, and ironically, that's when it did. A new opportunity came my way. Something big, something that required trust, collaboration, shared resources. Old me would have overthought every detail, searched for red flags, questioned my instincts. New me asked the right questions, set clear boundaries, got things in writing, and moved forward without fear. Not because I trusted blindly, but because I trusted myself, and that made all the difference. I realized then that healing isn't about becoming fearless, it's about becoming prepared. Prepared to walk away, prepared to speak up, prepared to stand alone if needed. That confidence doesn't shout, it settles in your bones. I noticed I was no longer drawn to people who needed saving or fixing. I felt no pull toward chaos. Drama exhausted me, consistency excited me, and that shift filtered my world naturally. Some people drifted away, others leaned in, and a few surprised me by meeting me exactly where I was. Those were the ones worth keeping. I also became more honest about my needs, without packaging them nicely. I didn't soften truths to avoid discomfort. I didn't sacrifice clarity for connection, and the people who belonged didn't flinch. They listened, they adjusted, they respected me. That's how you know you're in the right room. There was a quiet pride that grew during this phase, not the loud kind, not ego, the kind that comes from knowing you won't betray yourself again. That no matter who leaves, no matter what shifts, you will remain solid. I remember sitting alone one night thinking about how far I'd come from the woman who once questioned her worth because someone else couldn't honor it. And I smiled because that woman would be proud of me. She survived so I could arrive. I also stopped romanticizing endings. Not every ending needs closure, not every goodbye needs explanation, not every loss is a tragedy. Some endings are protection, some losses are redirection, some goodbyes save you years of pain. That understanding gave me peace. I didn't chase people anymore. I didn't cling to potential. I accepted reality as it was, not as I hoped it would be, and that acceptance gave me power. I stopped asking, why did this happen to me, and started asking, what does this teach me about myself? That question always had an answer, and the answer always moved me forward. I realized the biggest shift wasn't how I treated others, it was how I treated myself. I stopped pushing past exhaustion. I stopped dismissing my feelings. I stopped gaslighting my own intuition. I listened and my life responded. This chapter of my story it's something I announce. It shows in how I choose, how I speak, how I walk away. It's visible in my calm, in my boundaries, in my peace. And if someone from my past were to look at me now, they might not recognize me. That's okay. I didn't go through all that to stay the same. I went through it to become aligned. And alignment feels like home. This is the part of the story where nothing needs to happen because everything already has. And that's how you know you've crossed into a new life. Not because the past disappears, but because it no longer controls the present. I carried the lesson, not the wound, and that made all the difference. This part of my story feels heavier to tell. Not because it hurts more, but because it goes deeper. This is the layer that sits under everything else. The layer most people never slow down enough to face. When the noise finally fades, when the lessons are learned and the dust settles, you're left alone with yourself. And that's where the real reckoning happens. I remember sitting alone one night, lights off, phone face down, just me in the quiet. And for the first time, I wasn't distracted by anger or plans or healing strategies. I was just present. And that's when I asked myself a question I had avoided for a long time. Who was I trying to be before all this happened? Not who I became after, but who I was trying to prove I was. That question cracked something open. I realized so much of my old identity was built around being reliable, being needed, being the one who showed up no matter what. I wore that like a badge of honor. But underneath it there was fear. Fear of being disposable, fear of being forgotten, fear that if I stopped giving, people would leave. That fear shaped my choices more than I ever admitted. Ethan didn't create that fear, he just benefited from it. And that was a hard truth to swallow because it meant the betrayal wasn't just about him. It was about a pattern I had carried for years. A pattern of overgiving, of earning love through sacrifice, of staying quiet to keep peace. Seeing that clearly didn't make me feel ashamed. It made me feel awake, because once you see a pattern, you can break it. I started revisiting moments from my past with fresh eyes, friendships where I gave more than I received, jobs where I stayed too long, relationships where I accepted crumbs because I didn't want to be alone. I wasn't angry at that version of me. I felt compassion. She was doing the best she could with what she knew, but she didn't know her worth yet. This phase of my journey wasn't about adding anything new to my life. It was about subtracting the need to be liked, subtracting the urge to fix, subtracting the habit of self-abandonment. And subtraction is painful, because when you stop doing what kept people comfortable, some of them don't like it. They push back, they question you. They say you've changed, and they're right, you have. I had moments where I wondered if I was becoming selfish, if I was losing my softness. But then I looked at my peace, my energy, my clarity, and I knew I wasn't losing myself. I was returning to myself. I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't keep people out, they keep the wrong behavior out. And anyone who resents your boundaries was never respecting you to begin with. That realization alone shifted how I showed up everywhere. I stopped answering messages out of obligation. I stopped explaining decisions that didn't need approval. I stopped negotiating my needs. And the more I did that, the more grounded I felt. Not powerful in a loud way, powerful in a rooted way. Like no matter what happened next, I wouldn't collapse. There was a moment during this phase that really tested me. Someone I cared about crossed a line. Nothing dramatic, just subtle disrespect. Something old me would have ignored. I felt that familiar urge to rationalize it, to minimize it, to protect the relationship. I paused, and in that pause, I chose differently. I addressed it directly, calmly, without accusation. They didn't respond well. They deflected, dismissed, minimized, and instead of chasing resolution, I did something new. I let it be. I stepped back. That distance hurt, but it didn't to destroy me, because I wasn't abandoning myself anymore to keep someone else close. That was a breakthrough. I realized that peace isn't something you find, it's something you protect. And protecting it sometimes means letting people be disappointed in you. That's a price worth paying. This phase also made me confront grief, not just grief for what happened, but grief for what never was, the friendship I thought would last, the future. I imagined the version of myself I might have been if I'd learned these lessons earlier. I let myself mourn that fully without rushing it, because grief ignored doesn't disappear. It just hardens. I cried on random afternoons. I felt waves of sadness with no clear trigger. I missed people I no longer wanted back, and that was confusing, but I learned something important. You can miss someone and still know they're not meant to be in your life. Both can be true. Healing isn't about erasing emotion. It's about holding it without letting it control you. As time went on, I noticed my intuition getting sharper, not louder, clearer. I could feel when something was off without needing proof. I trusted that feeling. And when I acted on it, things aligned faster. Opportunities that once felt forced became natural. Conversations flowed without effort. Connections felt mutual instead of draining. That's what alignment feels like. Not perfectionese. I stopped chasing intensity. I chose stability. I chose honesty over harmony. I chose long-term peace over short-term comfort. And those choices stacked up quietly until one day I looked around my life and realized everything here fits me now. My routines, my circle, my values, even my silence felt intentional. I wasn't trying to be understood anymore. I was being authentic, and authenticity doesn't need agreement. This part of my story is where the lesson fully integrated, where the betrayal stopped being something that happened to me and became something that shaped me, not in a bitter way, in a grounded way. I didn't come out of this sharper edged. I came out clearer, more discerning, more self-aware, more honest. I no longer confuse being needed with being loved. I no longer confuse potential with reality. I no longer confuse loyalty with self-sacrifice. Those distinctions saved my life in ways money never could. If you're listening to this, and you're deep in your own process wondering why it's taking so long, why you're still thinking about it, why it still comes up when you least expect it, let me tell you something that doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're integrating. You're not just healing the wound, you're rewriting the pattern, and that takes time. But when it clicks, when it truly settles, you won't just feel better, you'll feel different. More you than you've ever been. This chapter didn't bring fireworks or closure speeches. It brought solidity, and solidity is what lasts. Because once you're solid, you don't bend for things that break. You don't negotiate your worth. You don't explain your boundaries. You just live from truth. And truth is unshakable. That's what this phase gave me. Not revenge, not validation, foundation. And from that foundation, everything else in my life will rise stronger than before. This is the part of the story that doesn't need tension to hold it up, because the weight comes from truth, not drama. When I look back now, it feels like I lived several lives inside one chapter. The woman I was before the betrayal, the woman I became during the fight, and the woman I am now standing on the other side. And the strangest part is this: none of them were wrong. They were all necessary. I used to think strength meant never getting hurt, never being fooled, never trusting the wrong person. But that idea is childish. Strength isn't avoidance. Strength is recovery, strength is learning, strength is adjusting, strength is choosing yourself again and again, even when it would be easier not to. What happened with Ethan didn't ruin my life. It revealed it. It showed me where I was leaking energy, where I was negotiating my worth, where I was confusing loyalty with silence. And once you see those things, you can't unsee them. I don't tell this story because I want people to feel bad for me. I tell it because I know someone listening is standing exactly where I once stood. Confused, hurt, questioning themselves, wondering if speaking up is worth the fallout. Let me tell you something clearly. It is not because you'll always win. Not because people will suddenly understand, but because every time you choose yourself, you strengthen the part of you that knows your value, and that part doesn't lie. I didn't come out of this flawless. I still have moments where I hesitate, where old habits whisper, where fear tries to negotiate. But now I recognize it, and recognition is power. I don't silence myself anymore. I don't explain disrespect away. I don't stay where I feel small, and that has brought a kind of peace I didn't know existed. The kind that doesn't depend on outcomes. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that stays even when things go wrong. That's real security. Money can be lost. People can leave, plans can change, but self-respect, that's unmovable. If I could go back and speak to the woman who handed over that money with nothing but faith in her heart, I wouldn't warn her. I'd thank her because her kindness wasn't a mistake. It was the starting point of a lesson that changed everything. I'd tell her, you're going to lose something, but you're going to gain something far more valuable. Your voice, your boundaries, your clarity, and most of all, yourself. This story didn't end with revenge. It ended with alignment, with peace that doesn't shake, with confidence that doesn't perform, with a life that feels honest, and that's the ending no one can take from me. So if you're listening to this carrying your own betrayal, your own loss, your own unfinished chapter, hear this. You don't need to become harder. You don't need to become colder. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to become honest with yourself about what you feel, about what you deserve, about what you will no longer tolerate. From there, everything changes, because the moment you stop betraying yourself, no one else can either. And that's the real power. That's the real justice. That's the real ending. This isn't just my story anymore. It's proof that even when someone takes what isn't theirs, they can never take who you become after, and that's how I know I didn't just survive this, I won.